I literally remember early in my career thinking, okay, let's put on the suit of armor and we'll go into work or go into this presentation. And I have to show no fear, no vulnerability. I don't feel the need to prove that to anymore. And I wish I would have learned that earlier in my career.
Hi, and welcome to Speaking Your Brand. I'm your host, Carol Cox. What is it like to be a woman in leadership and to use your voice, or to sometimes maybe earlier in your career to have wondered what's the best way to use your voice, or even to be encouraged to do so? Well, I am honored to have as my guest today, Mary Beth Plank-Mezo, who is Vice President of Staff and Cultural Development at Full Sail University. Mary Beth has been here for 36 years. Now, I've been teaching here for 16 years, and we are filming right now in a studio on the campus of Full Sail in Winter Park, Florida. Mary Beth, welcome to Speaking Your Brand.
Thank you so much, Carol. I'm very honored to be here.
Well, I have known you pretty much the entire tenure that I've been here at Full Sail, and I've seen how much you have advocated for the people who work with you and your teams, and really for women across the entire university. But I would like to know, let's go way, way back. You made the jump from education into admissions, and then eventually into what you do now, staff and cultural development. But let's talk about kind of what you were doing in admissions, because I know that was a big part of your career and and helping you to define your leadership methodology and your leadership principles.
True. And as a matter of fact, talking about speaking, I actually had the nerve to reach out to the founder, John Phelps, and ask him if I could work for him in the admissions department. And after about 6 months, I was able to make that transition from education to admissions and had 20 plus years there where I just had a fabulous time.
So I love that you advocated for yourself. You saw something that you wanted to do. And then what do you think gave you the confidence to do that back then?
You know, I have no idea. I often wonder what possessed me to make an appointment with the founder, right? Although he did interview me for the job when I started. But I pinch myself every day because I encourage women, do the thing you're afraid to do, because so many great things can happen as a result.
Thinking about that, what are some of the proudest moments you've had as a leader here?
That's a good question. I mean, I've had so many great moments in admissions, but one of the proudest was, I think, raising my hand to start the Staff and Cultural Development Department. I was talking to a colleague who actually was thinking about the idea and thinking about the need that Full Sail is big enough that we need to have a department for development of others. And I brought it up to him and he said, I just don't think you're that person. And I said, but I still want to do it. And so, for a couple of years, I worked on that, collaborating with people all around the company. And to my knowledge, it was the first time that we had a company-wide task force with people from every department. And we did some great work and presented it to, our co-chairman, and eventually we became a department.
And what lessons do you draw from that experience? Thinking about the initiative and then putting it forth and then deciding that, yes, in fact, we're the one who wanted to do it. What lessons do you draw from that either have helped you in subsequent initiatives or can help other people?
Well, the first thing is the answer no is not necessarily the answer no. It could be not now. It could be, well, you need to come up with a different method. So it's like, I don't consider a no an obstacle, but I just have to reprioritize or rethink how to get that job accomplished.
And what did it look like to go company-wide? Because you said this was probably the first time where an initiative where you did go to all of the different departments. And so logistically, what did that look like?
It was a really, really memorable opportunity. And people really wanted to help. We all were very purpose-driven. Each person that I asked to volunteer to be a part of this task force, and they got excited about Full Sail's better future. And so I guess the lesson is, can you inspire people through your own vision to do something to make things better? And everybody wants to make things better, they really do. If they are engaged, they want to make things better. So it was just a great time.
Well, I know that a lot of the women that we work with are executives and professionals, and they're working within companies. And so sometimes they're out speaking on stages, and sometimes they're presenting internally to get buy-in from either within their team or from other departments. So it sounds very much like that was what you were doing as well, going to these different departments. And I love that you said starting with the vision. And then how did you approach the different departments? Because I'm sure some departments had different needs or different ideas compared to other departments, kind of based on what their goals and priorities were.
So I remember a female colleague just sharing with me as we were in that meeting. And she said, you know what if we listen to what everyone has to say? And so I listened to what every single person had to say, allowed them to express their passion for what the project would entail. And I think that was the winning combination, actually. And then I can talk about my thoughts, but hearing from everyone else was the perfect thing to do. So allowing others to be seen and heard first before you then use your vision, but also incorporating their ideas.
Like co-creating the vision together.
Yes, creates buy-in.
Oh, I love that. Mary Beth, has there been a time in your career where you wanted to use your voice and something held you back and you didn't, or you should have used your voice and looking back now you wished you had?
All of the above. And I do remember earlier in my career, a senior executive telling me, speak up, because in the early part of my career, I really deferred to the authorities. If you're in a meeting with the president of the university, I'm not going to speak. He knows everything. But the thing I didn't realize is I had a different perspective than him. I had more of a ground floor perspective, which allowed for valuable insights. So that's at some of the times I should have spoken up when I didn't. And then at other times, it's been very fortuitous that I spoke up, like the beginning of staff and cultural development. Even though you get a no, you still need to speak up.
So this idea of feeling like deferring to authority, or you don't want to maybe even rock the boat or feel like you're saying something that maybe they don't necessarily have thought of already. So do you still find that does that still come up for you in any ways it lessened, or have you decided that it's like having this kind of like ground floor perspective is the value that to bring to the other leaders?
Each year we have women apply to be in, and we ask that question, what holds you back? 9 times out of 10, they say, I hold myself back. And so for me, just knowing that, realizing that lesson, I know that I've got to push myself outside of my comfort zone, even when I don't want to, even when I want to hang back, because my tendency is to hang back, but you got to do it anyway. You got to push past that.
And I'm so glad that I went through the Women's Leadership Initiative program that was way back in 2015. And then you invited me to co-facilitate it with you in 2016. And I think we had a group about 40 or 50 women from across the university, different positions, who were part of that. And one of the most powerful sessions that we did is when we had some men come in who were leaders in different departments and talked about being advocates and allies. So how has that shown up for you in your career? How have you seen that show up for other women that you know?
I have so many great advocates for me here at Full Sail that are men, and that push me out, that challenge me when I want to hang back, because they know that much about me, that I can have a tendency to defer, challenge me and push me forward and say, this is really your responsibility. You should A, B, C, or D. So yeah, I have lots of examples of that in my career here.
And have you seen women who are on your team who you have given a push to as well, like helping them to say speak up or to maybe raise their hand for a promotion or for a bigger project?
That's actually my favorite thing to do is to, my proudest moments here at Full Sail are seeing those leaders that I've supervised or mentored flourish. So yes. And, they always surprise me and do even more things and better than I could have ever done so. So I mean, any woman has got to have people that you are looking toward for your next career, but also you've got to be pulling others up and along with you to advance their journey as well.
I know from some of our earlier conversations before today that you have said that one of the things you do love doing, which you just mentioned, is seeing the talent or the skills or the potential in the people around you, whether it's people in your team or others at the university. And so why do you think that lights you up so much? Why is like seeing someone's potential? What does that do for you? And then what does it do for them?
I think it's more of a gift to me than it is to them. Just to see potential realized is what we're talking about, right? And what better thing could we do than to allow others to realize their potential? It's a real gift.
So it sounds like this idea of realizing your potential, it comes from self-advocacy, like you going to the founder very early on here at Full Sail and saying, hey, can I work for you? Or saying, I had this idea for staff and cultural development as a department, and I would love to lead it. So we had the self-advocacy part of it, but then we have the finding those advocates out there who will say, maybe push you a little bit further than you can push yourself. And actually have a third. So we have 1, 2, 3. The third one is then, like you said, advocating for others, whether they're others who you're supervising or maybe others at your same peer level, but saying, you know what, like maybe that project is a good one that you should get involved in.
Absolutely. Always. And thinking about if we are leading anyone, we are also responsible for developing them. So what are those things, that you can take off your own plate and give to them as a way of growing leaders at Full Sail or growing leaders in general.
And so, Mary Beth, thinking about earlier in your career, or even at the midpoint of your career versus now, how would you describe your communication style?
Early in my career, I was very formal. And because I thought, well, that's what you're supposed to do. This is a real job. And so I've got to be very formal. But I've completely changed. And I think now, as a leader, I try to be very informal because I want to try to put people at ease. People get intimidated by leaders at times. So I really try to be very informal in my communication style to actually develop trust, create vulnerability and develop trust with others.
Had there been any times where you've had vulnerable moments that you shared with others? You don't have to share what exactly happened, but then what was the outcome of doing that?
Well, are you talking about maybe a vulnerability hangover?
It could be.
Did I say too much? Did I, because you're showing a sign of weakness, and that's what we think. But the amazing thing about it is we are showing others that, guess what? None of us are perfect. We're all human. We all make mistakes. So it allows them to show their true self, their real self, their full self to you. And you get the best work out of a person if they're being their honest and authentic self.
And have you seen leaders around you do just that? And then how did that make you feel?
Absolutely. Leaders that I see it all the time. I see it both ways. I see people who, I want to say put up a facade, but only show the strong part of themselves. And I think that's limiting for others. And it doesn't give people permission to fail. And what it does is it diminishes innovation, is what I've seen. People are afraid to work outside of this one box. And so it just thwarts innovation and getting better. So.
And I know a lot of times as women, we feel like we have to show up perfectly and, have all of our ducks in a row because we don't want to be perceived as inept or incompetent or weak because we get these societal messaging, right, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. So I understand why people put on a shield, like yes, kind of some protective armor for that. But I love your point about then the people around them feel like if they're imperfect or they make a mistake, then maybe something's going to happen to them that's going to be negative versus trying things and maybe taking a calculated risk that could lead to innovation.
Absolutely. It's so funny that you bring up putting the pieces of armor. I literally remember early in my career thinking, okay, let's put on the suit of armor and we'll go into work or go into this presentation. And I have to show no fear, no vulnerability. And now that I'm really long into my career, I'll say it that way. I don't feel the need to do that anymore. I don't feel the need to prove that anymore. And I wish I would have learned that earlier in my career.
Do you feel like it's because you have more credibility established now? So, because what would you say to maybe younger women or even mid-career women who maybe they feel like, okay, well, the protective armor has served me well. They're thinking to themselves because they have gotten to a certain place in their career, but maybe it's holding them back and they don't even realize it. How and when can they know that it's okay to let some of that armor down? Are there small situations they can do that in or with certain people that are around them?
That's a good question. I do think you should practice. Just a small little experiment, I would say, to practice. But it also depends on the environment within that you're in. If there is an environment where you're not encouraged to take risks, maybe that's something. And some people thrive in that environment. But if you're one who really wants to grow and spends a lifetime learning and growing, I would recommend trying it on for size. And even if your leader is not vulnerable, what would happen? What would be the worst thing that happens if you are vulnerable? That's called leading upward. And so maybe they can learn from you.
Oh, that's a great example. Role modeling.
Yeah.
Role modeling goes all the way around.
Absolutely.
I do feel like vulnerability is contagious. And contagious
yes.
in the best kind of way. When one person does it, it opens up other people to do it as well.
Yeah. And I would say strategic vulnerability. We don't want to be too vulnerable and put every card out for others, but just do a test if you're early in your career.
I love that. That's a great challenge to the audience to think about maybe something they can do next. I know, Mary Beth, you've been here at Full Sail for 36 years. I've been here for 16 years. I know so many people that we know have been here for 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40 years and up. Why do you think so many of us stay here at Full Sail for so long?
Our culture, I would say. And of course, our founder and our president, Gary Jones, really modeled that way for us. But also, we spend all our lives mentoring students to have a career in the industry. So that in and of itself is so rewarding. And I think all of us want to be around that energy, right? We love to help others innately. And so I think Full Sail really draws that out in people. We try to bring out the best in others.
Yes. And I do get the energy from the students, and I see because they're excited about their careers, or whether it's working in film or music or business or marketing, or I know we have lots of other programs that we have started even since the core ones came about. And I love seeing them get involved in projects too, whether it's projects on campus or like we do our digital marketing degree programs here at Full Sail. We do an AI marketing summit that's online because most of our students are online, so they can come and join us from everywhere. And so we're helping them to understand the ins and outs of artificial intelligence and all the possibilities that it has for their careers. So I really love to see all these things that students are getting excited about, because then it gets us excited. It also pushes us to stay at that leading edge of where innovation is going, whether it's technology in a certain industry or trends, because we have to keep up with what the students are going to be learning.
And that's another reason, right? I mean, so maybe people remain here because they're so inspired, because they're always learning and growing. And who doesn't want to be on the leading edge of technology, innovation? So that's a really good point, Carol.
So what is next for you, Mary Beth?
Well, that's a good question. At this point in my career, my goal and my passion is to mentor and coach others. I want to look and see who are the next leaders at Full Sail University. And so that's what I'm putting my time in to do, so that when I do step away, we'll have plenty of successors that are able and ready and willing to start where I left off and make it everything even better.
Well, Mary Beth, thank you so much for your leadership here at Full Sail. I know I have learned so much from you. I feel like you are a mentor and advocate for me and have been for a long time. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on to Speaking Your Brand today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored, and I'm just so proud of what you've done in your career here at Full Sail. So congratulations to you.
Well, thank you so much. And for all of you out there, so think about what we talked about here today. What are ways that you can advocate for yourself? Is there a position that you're looking at in your organization? Is there a speaking opportunity that you have your eyes on? Maybe there's a board that you would like to be a member of. Start advocating for yourself. The second thing is also to find those advocates for you who can help to champion you on your behalf for some of those things that you're looking to do. And the third thing is to be advocates for others. Find either those who are a few steps behind you or even peers at your same level and champion them and advocate for them. It's when we do all of these things that we make all of our dreams come true. Until next time, thanks for watching.